This year was a little different, but we had to have people outside of our organization verify that we ran the tournament since it was a virtual tournament and we wasn't shooting with other schools. So I contacted our West Virginia DNR officers, Mills and Lambert, and they came out and spent Saturday with us to verify that we ran the tournament. Everything was above board, scoring and everything, and they had to sign off on our tournament, so I wanted to thank them. I had some central office staff that I had to recruit. One of my seniors couldn't shoot on Saturday and had to shoot Friday evening, so Mr. Warville volunteered his time to come down and score my senior, and that was fun.
It's easy when they're a good shot to add up the points.
Yeah, it was mostly tens.
Yes, it will. It's easy for a guy like me, Mr. Ramsey. You'd be proud of me.
And
You'd be proud.
Mr. Lester volunteered his time both at our state tournament and our national tournament to come and verify scoring. And of course, Amy and Nathan, they're always there. Amy is my scorer. She runs all the scores and the reports. And Nathan just comes to look pretty, but we'll give him credit. And then of course, Mr. Greg Angel, who helps out with everything. And then this year, the kids couldn't score their own scorecard. Well, they don't score their own cards, but they score each other. But it wasn't allowed this year to keep everything above board, so I had to enlist parents and grandparents and friends and family to come and help do the scoring. So I want to thank everybody for that. Oh Lord, don't forget Danny, or I'll get in trouble. Danny does a lot of work with the kids, and he really helps the kids with his expertise.
So we had a little extra help this year. We had Ranger Mark Bollinger come in and work with our kids and with us. He kind of put me out of a job, but I wasn't too sad about that. He's worked with the kids in archery for more years than I have. I just started the year after this man started this program. And so he came in, he's dedicated his time, and he's worked with these kids. And he's also given us some resources to build our program with, even bigger than what we have now. So we just want you to come forward if you would. Mr. Bollinger, we have a little something for you.
Kids are always great. I'm retiring from my position as education specialist with National Park Service. The biggest thing I'm going to miss is working with students. And this week, Mr. Warble and the principals allowed all the second, third, fourth, and fifth grade students to come out to the park for educational programs and a day of fun. So that's what it's all about, and I'll keep doing it as long as I can.
We appreciate you.
Yeah, the good part is he still gets to work with the students in archery with us. So
Yeah.
We appreciate your help. And I just want to make a few comments about Sean and Easton. Sean, I've watched Sean grow up with my boy. There's been a couple of kids that have stayed close from that class from pre-K all the way through. And Sean and Nathan, they're consistently back and forth with their scores. Sean always has my back because he tells me to get my life together. So he's going to make sure someday I get my life together. So, Sean, I appreciate you looking out for me. And can you go back to the picture of Easton real quick? Sure. I just want to show you all something. I'm going to get myself in trouble with this man here, but I'm going to tell it anyway. Easton, when he would shoot, you would have no trouble scoring Easton. Easton shot a lot of 10s, as does Sean. But if you look at the name of the target in the four corners, the O is a bullseye. It's not much bigger than a quarter. So Easton would pull me to the side when this man was not looking, and he would say, "Can I shoot the little bullseye?" And the first time he asked me that, I had to look. I said, "What are you talking about, Easton?" He said, in the name of the target. I said, "Sure, go ahead." And so Miss Man, she didn't like him shooting at the corner of the target, and so I'm the reason Easton was shooting. But it surprised me how many times he would hit that little bullseye.
Wow.
And I told the kids last year during our tournament that if one of them shot a 295, I was going to let them cut my beard off. I was really worried about Sean and Easton. They got close, but they didn't get to cut my beard. They wanted to trim it, but they didn't get to. So I look forward to watching these kids grow in archery. Archery is a lot like life. You have good days shooting and you have bad days shooting. Is that right, Sean? Some days you shoot really good, some days not so good. And life's that way. Some days you have good days, some days you have bad days. But the most important thing is the next day you try to do better than you did the day before. So keep that in mind.
And we hope we get to come back after June 12th and have a success story that these guys did really well. Emily.
But thank you guys for allowing me the time to do this.
I would like to say, and I'm sure all of us up here would like to say, congratulations to all of our participants in the archery competitions. Special congratulations to those who scored so well. Competition at this level creates a great amount of poise and discipline, and it's great to be on a stage like that competing. So we are most happy that this archery program is available. It's including more students who might not otherwise be included in things, and that's a wonderful thing. And so Superintendent Warble, anytime that you bring something before us that can get more of our kids involved in things like this board would be most receptive.
What about the little ones, Miss Mann?
Fourth grade, once they get fourth grade, they are welcome to join archery.
There you go.
There you go.
That's not my role, that's just the state. It's going to be in fourth grade.
Okay.
And
we'll also let you participate. We have some video of one of your administrators participating in archery last year. I won't mention any names, Miss Hudson, but she did really good shooting at one of our targets after our last
Maid Marian.
tournament last year.
can a board president participate?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You
Mrs.
can stand
Mann.
up there with an apple on and I will shoot.
I'd rather be on the other end if you don't mind.
I'd rather have a nerve.
There would be a long line if I had an apple on my head, I can assure you that. But Mrs. Mann, we appreciate your passion for this and your leadership. This is a great thing you're doing for our students. So, let's go on to Superintendent Warble. We have another round of presentations on student success stories, and that's good.
Mr. Ramsey. I think Mr. Ramsey's going to take next. Are you with the Youth Arts?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and there's a microphone up there. I don't want to steal his thunder, but I will say Mr. Ramsey is one of those guys that we're blessed to have in the classroom. I'm sure if we asked his students, I think they would agree that they like being in his classroom. He challenges kids. He makes them want to come to school, and when they miss school, it seems like they want to get back there quickly. And I just would like to address his sunglasses. I asked him about those. He was wearing them the last time I went to talk to him. He said he lied to me. He was the only one in his family that had them, but I think the rest of his family liked his sunglasses so much that they had to purchase yellow ones as well. I think he's a trendsetter as an educator, but also in the fashion wear as well. But I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Ramsey. There you go, sir.
My screen doesn't match the screen. There's that. Might need Mr. Lester. Oh, is it just clicking like that? Boom. Thank you, sir. All right. Thank you for having me up here. I appreciate the opportunity to come in and show off some of these students' art success stories. I know it's getting close to the end of the year, and I'm honored that you want me to come down and talk about it. So there you go. I mean, how do you follow that with the archery? I'll tell you one thing. I would love to see a correlation between those success stories and how much deer meat that in the freezer is at home right now. I would love to know that as well. But okay. Youth arts in the parks. I started this in 2013. That's when I first heard about it and started at Hinton area, and it just kind of grew from there. All right. What is Youth Arts in the Parks? Every year it's a student contest for grades K through 12. Celebrates West Virginia ecology through art. Inspires community connection to local ecology and outdoor stewardship. Raises awareness of Appalachia's natural diversity in parks. Is a part of the River Gorge Wildfire Weekend, which I did not know is a big deal. I did not know that. And it's hosted by several state parks every year. The more I dug about it, the more I found out. And it's, like I said, a very big deal in the River Gorge Bridge, especially now when it's now recognized as a national park. I'm just blown by that. But and at the end right there, which I'll talk about in just a little bit, because I've never had one till now, it says participants may also have the opportunity to explore the business of art and its role in economic development. And like I said, I've never had a student do that before, so I was kind of unaware until that happened. I'll share that when we get to it, because that is kind of a funny story when that came about. There are different categories. I have them listed on the board or up here, but the one we enter is the first one that says wildflower art entry must be created by hand. And more specifically, with tying into ecology, you have to have a West Virginia native flower and a pollinator. It has to, it could be a ladybug, it could be an ant, any type of pollinator for the flower. They previously had 3D pieces in that, and that was kind of a funny story because in the past they've had some winning pieces, and you've had some. I remember one was a kindergarten student who had welded a flower, and I would love to have seen how they did that. But anyways, MIG welding, or I'm not sure how they did that, but that's another conversation. All right. More importantly, standards across the curriculum. It's more than just an art contest. We probably spend 2 weeks solid in science and social studies on that. And we go through ELA with title development, because you have to submit a title goes on. And just like an article you would read in the newspaper or a movie title, if it's something catchy, you are more likely to read it or watch it. And students really spend time on that ELA portion of it with math. When we're talking about measurement, we talk about symmetry with leaves to flowers, with measurement of the flowers. Like we'll talk about clusters of how many flowers per stem, and we're talking about equal groups, measurements, and just comparing flowers. Like we talk about measurement with 2 inches flowers, or 2-inch flowers, 3-inch flowers. Social studies, we're talking West Virginia history, has to be a native flower. Of course, art with the painting and technology. I have the link posted on Google Classroom with students, which actually made my job a whole lot easier. Instead of me just clicking on the screen, just scrolling down, everyone had that link. You had everyone with their own device scrolling down, looking at the flowers, practice sketching on paper, trying to find out which one they want to do. And a lot of times students will say, "Oh, I want that one, it has a really cool name." Once you try to draw it, that's another story. So they switch around, they scroll through, and so we have some technology parts in that as well. All right, this is kind of fun. Think beyond the crayon. That's the hardest thing, is everyone wants to use crayons when we're doing art projects. And we explored color pencils, watercolors, soft pastels, oil pastels. Recently explored pen and watercolors, or a combination, and you could enter as mixed media. And I learned something as well on that, because my art background is limited, and there is a portion called mixed media, and I thought, well, hey, we just kind of Google that together, and it says, let's say if you do a whole watercolor painting, and then you want to make your pollinator a ladybug, well, you can take a color pencil, just kind of sketch one right there on the stem or the leaf, and you got it. And instead of just seeing it in the color pencil category, you have it in the mixed media category. And students really got into that one. They said, so I could do, say, soft pastels and oil pastels, or do color pencils in, and that goes around to the next part. Big risk, big reward. With any job, you can take a big risk. Hey, let's take this out. It's a shortcut. Well, if it is, great. If not, you just added another hour to your trip. or something like that. And some students have really taken risk with this. I'll talk more about that when I get to each painting, because each of these students did take a risk with background choices, because most of them take it safe. The sky's blue, let's do a blue background. Some students said, you know what, I'm going to use a different color to give the impression of morning, evening, or something like, or rain, night. And sometimes big risk, big reward, and sometimes not so much. My favorite story I tell my kids every year, and they know it now, is Frankenberg. I had a student once draw this big, beautiful Canadian violet. It was probably the best I've ever seen. Even had water droplets. I'm thinking, how did you draw it? How did you color that? And I said, oh, you need a pollinator. And this student decided to illustrate a hummingbird. I said, oh, that's good, but be careful because the emphasis is the flower with your pollinating in the background. Well, when the student drew the hummingbird, it was about 9 inches wide in the background, had teeth, it's a hummingbird, and I remember I said, oh, that's a good, whoa, that's okay, that's a good job, okay, we just move on, big risk. But that one didn't pan out. But that was my favorite story because
That's good.
it was shocking. It was, like I said, it looked more like a pterodactyl than a hummingbird. But some, it's like you said, at the end of any walks of life, you take big risks, big reward. But hey, sometimes it doesn't always pan out. All right, we have some finalists this year, and I do have written down the other two finalists I don't have in my class. I thought I was just going in my class, but I will recognize them as well. Well, if you would, when I call your name, stand up so everybody can see you, and I'll read the titles to it. So first, we have McKenna Mann. If you would stand up. McKenna, her title was Daisy Fleabane with a ladybug. Next is Sadie Richmond, Yellow Lady Slipper with a bee at sunset. Jackson Stanford couldn't be here this evening, so his was Large Flower Trillium with a butterfly at sunrise. Montana Woodrow had a red trillium with a butterfly. And I will talk more about your background when I get to it. And we also have Isaiah Fitz, was it Bees in the Indian Pipe? Right? Okay, back here in the back. And then we have Miriam Fitz, Ginseng in the Forest. I mean, like I said, right there's the ELA component right there coming up with a good title that really catches your eye. All right, so there you go. All right, you may go ahead and have a seat. Let's go individual. McKenna Mann. Okay, here's McKenna's Daisy Fleabane with a ladybug. I still remember, I'll pick a little bit. I allowed students, I said, you know what, because it takes about maybe 2 days for students to sketch out an idea. And I said, you know, you can take a piece of paper home and sketch what you want on pencil because you have to do the final copy in the room. McKenna brought this in and I said, did you do that by yourself? She said, yes, I did. And I said, we'll see in a minute. And sure enough, she drew it, a replica, and I said, oh, wow, good, you did draw that. That was kind of a funny story we had. And she sketched hers with pastels, and she has the light blue background with the dark blue sky contrast. And if you could see closer, the thing about Daisy Fleabane, it looks like a white daisy, and there are specks of pink on there, and she blended that really well on the petal. Let me move on to the other one. Sadie Richmond, her yellow lady slipper with a bee at sunrise. I was telling her mother when she started painting the background red, I didn't want to say, don't do that. It's it's like someone standing behind you playing chess. You got to move, and I wouldn't do that. And you're like, will you move? But anyways, but she started painting the background red, and I first, okay. And I said, why are you painting that red? And she said, well, I want it to be sunset, look like the evening, and the sky is on. And she did it. And hey, big risk, big reward. I was impressed with that. So you can kind of see that in the background, and the background looks really watery. Where she did it with watercolor paint, and it turned out really well. Moving on. Boom. Jackson. Okay, another one. I was just kind of monitoring, and the whole part about this, I did start I had some videos I had made personally where I had made some flowers with examples. I had one that was a watercolor painting so they can see how to do it. Oil pastel, soft pastel. And I'm just kind of still walking around the room. I'm not really doing too much talking. They're on the video, they're researching, they're sketching. And I saw stripes, and I said, why are there stripes in your background? And he says, well, and he said, I want it to look like the sunrise. You know, it's kind of morning, the lights, you know, when you come out of the house, and he was talking about the beams of lights coming across, and I'm, go right ahead, that's fine. But I wanted to know, I wanted a reason, and like I said, it paid off. And he has a little blue butterfly on the side right there, and that's the whole point. When I was talking about Frankenberg, when you look at the picture, the first thing you should see is the flower right away. And then you have to look for the pollen there. That's the whole idea. And if you look closely, look. Montana, red curly mother butterfly. She did hers, and she used a mixture of reds and some pinks. And then soft pastels get really dusty on your fingers. She was shading the background in blue and got some pink swirl in the background. And at first, I remember her saying, "Oh, I got some pink in my background." And then she kind of said, "Well, I'm just going to kind of go." She kept blending it, and it kind of resembled like a sky that has like clouds in the morning or evening when it looks like maybe some pinks and oranges, make like the evening like that, and it really worked well. And again, big risk, big reward. Here's the part I want to talk about when I started the original one, the economic development of art. And I thought, what does that mean? Because I didn't really get into that through the contest. But I had an email on McKenna. She was one of the overall winners selected, Daisy Lee Bain. And the Tamarack called her mother about a sale price that they were to agree upon to sell her painting for. And I said, and she said, "What do I say?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I've never had anybody get this far." Usually everyone, I have, maybe up to 3 or 4 finalists, and then they'll just call me at the end and say, "Hey, you need to come pick up your work," and that's about it. And they said, "Well, your artwork is going to be on exhibit for sale." And then her mother said, "How much should I tell them it's worth?" And I went, "I don't know. I've never done this." And I was trying to be funny. And it was funny because she must have been on break when she's sitting there. Like when I replied, she didn't reply. And I thought, "Oh, wait a minute, because I replied, I said, if I were you, I would ask for $1 million and cross your fingers." And then she didn't respond until her lunch break. "Oh, okay, I'm good," because I thought maybe. But anyways, so I haven't heard back on that, but they actually contacted and said, "We're going to put it up." I mean, it's up there with the rest of it. It talks, and then in terms of the economic development, or through art, they really kind of show you how when you come in, that's people's livelihoods. There are some people who sell their artwork, whatever kind it would be, and it's like I said. So I still don't know how much you sold it for, but or if you did stuff, but there you go. But I'll kind of stop right there, and I do want to thank everybody. I thank for the support. I know I started out getting there. I just kind of found it out by chance, and then we kind of built on it over the years. Miss Jones, former principal, she would sit in to me first thing, "Hey, I know you like this. I know you want to get on this." I like having lots of time. I don't like to say, "Hey, it's Monday, contest on Friday, go." I don't like that. I like to have plenty of time scheduled out, work it out, and like I said, students really have fun playing with that. And I've had some students go all the way through the process. "I don't like it, you start over," and that's okay too. I like also like the Henry Foundation. I always apply for one of those mini grants every year. And that's how it first started. And I do want to share one quick story and I'll stop. I may come on in 2 hours, but I'll only go an hour and a half. That's okay. But when the first year I applied for this grant, I ordered just a plain set of watercolor sets, and we just had a little thing, get everything done. We just paint on Friday, and push through the week, we get everything done, paint on Friday. And I opened the paint sets, and I'm passing that, just to let you know, the background, some of these students, you have to understand, not everyone has opportunities to participate in things like this beyond just paper and pencil. And I remember passing all the paint sets, and this little boy started sobbing. And I'm not talking just a little bit upset. I'm talking sobbing like I just saw something, my dog hit my car, something like that. And I said, "What is wrong?" And he said, "There's something wrong with my paint." And I said, "What's wrong?" And he opened his paint set and said, and remember, it's a watercolor set. He said, "It's all dried up." And I said, you know it doesn't come wet from the back. I said, "You have to take the brush, dip it in the water, dip it in the paint." And we had to stop right there and do a quick lesson just so he could see, because he thought, and I said, "Everybody hold your paints in it." And everybody kind of like this at him, and everybody's looking like, "What's going on?" But you have to understand, he had never painted before. And he had heard that when I think paint, or you think paint, you think wet. He just saw a dried up paint, so I had no idea. And so you should see when the kids pull out the oil pastels, the soft pastels. I've had kids say, "Oh, this oil pastel feels like a waxy crayon." I said, "There you go, it feels really oily." One boy said, "This feels just like my mom's makeup." Now, I'm not going to start how much makeup she probably wears if it feels like an oil pastel. But anyway, oil pastels, soft pastels. I mean, you should hear what these kids are saying, what they compare to. This is really chalky. I asked the boy at the end of the year, "Would you like a pastel set?" "No." "Oh, well, okay." He did want a paint set. And I called him and I said, "You want to tell me why you don't want one?" He said, "Yes, I about never got that off my fingers when I got home." "Oh, that's okay." And apparently his fingers were blue for a few days because he used the darkest blue in the box. And that's okay. But like I said, the students really have fun with this. We explore it every year. And it's great starting because every year I have something wildly different each time. And I'm kind of shocked. And like I said, this year, like the backgrounds, the color choices, the combinations, if I could go, I can go back, but Jackson's, I will say on his, when he did the stripes, I was okay with it. And then I said, what are you doing? He did watercolors and he did, I believe, soft pastel. And then he was running back and I said, no, what are you doing? Now I'm going to do oil pastel. I said, no, you're not. No. He was going to use every single medium in the box. And I said, I think that if you do it, it's going to be way too much over the top. I said, think about hot sauce. You only need a little bit. You don't dump the whole lot. He's like, okay. Well, like I said, big risk, big reward. And some of these kids took risk and it paid off really well. And sometimes it's not always the case, but hey, that's life sometimes. But there you go. But I appreciate y'all having me talk today and share, like I said, these student success stories. I love all that archery stuff. I didn't know any of this. That's amazing. I'm excited about that. I remember Easter meetings in second grade. I've never seen that. That's amazing. Anyways, thank y'all. Thank you for everything, and I'll be quiet.
Let's have a nice round of applause. Not only for these winners, but for Mr. Ramsey. You have just enjoyed the entertainment of Mr. John Ramsey.
Mr. Ramsey, stay up here, have the kids come up with you and take a picture.
I have Mr. Ramsey, before you do that. We have a lot of blessings in the school system. And what I'm about to say is not meant to leave out or omit anyone. Mr. John Ramsey is a real blessing to this school system.
Yes, he is.
And for you parents and fellow teachers and all the board members, what you just saw is a teacher who enjoys his job. He brings enthusiasm, he entertains his students, he's demanding of them, and you can tell looking at these kids, they have a good time. Everybody should be so blessed as to have a Mr. Ramsey as a teacher. And I can tell you, my wife worked with him for many years. My wife would come home every day. She said, you should see what John did in his class today. She'd come home the next day. Boy, John's got this great idea. I said, who is John? And so, Mr. Ramsey, we appreciate you. And I know my wife really appreciated all that time she worked with you. But again, thank you so much for what you do for our kids in this county. So, at this time,
Come up and get a picture.
Mr. Ramsey, why don't you have your children come up? Let's get a picture. And then, Mrs. Mann, you get a picture of your archery people here just in a moment. This is the good thing about what we do, folks.
We got one more coming.
I'll tell you what, speaking about this area, I do love this area. I came to this area in '98, and everyone was on the way out, I was on my way in. This is my home, where I met my wife. Well, it was funny, I came in '98, never left. So there you go.
Well, you can't leave.
Okay, there you go. Oh, here, I'll get mine. Y'all see what I'm saying?
That'll work.
So you're cutting off their legs, right?
So did you guys end up selling her art? Did it sell? It's still at how much?
For $20. She said she didn't know what the prices were, so she just said.
Well, not to be funny, but my neighbor Frank and I will put stuff together in our yard and we'll say that's Tamarack worthy. So I can't wait to go home and tell Frank, my neighbor, I found someone who's Tamarack worthy, and it isn't us, buddy. It's a girl that's in the elementary school. So we got to step it up. That's impressive.
Okay. Congratulations to all of you.
Derek.
The Youth Arts and the Parks winners. Very good. And now we're going to get some pictures of our archery
If you want to set up,
with,
you need to set up.
Mrs. Mann.
Hey, and next we have Derek Pugh with New School. We'll just get him out of the way.
Come on, Jimmy, you can represent the same.
Jimmy was a big helper.
Yes, he was.
He worked hard with the elementary.
Yes, he
Did he hold the apple on his head?
did. No, but he was a big helper with the elementary kids.
I would use a Nerf dart gun. At least those don't hurt you. Yeah, I can see, because if mom ain't happy, nobody's happy. That's pretty cool. You might want to see Derek, I don't know. You don't have to.
Let's take a little pause here just for a second as the children leave.
He is. He said he's coming. I don't know.
You guys are welcome at our meetings anytime. Please come back.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Does Miss Richmond teach title, right? Derek's going to go to new school.
Derek, just give me 1 minute, okay? There's a couple other things that I want to say, surprise, but I want to say about, for those of you who were not at graduation last Friday night, it's the first time in over a year and a half I felt normal at a school function. It was, I thought, a great success. It went off very smoothly. I want to thank Superintendent Warville. And Superintendent Warville, I heard a lot of nice comments from the public about your presentation. I want to thank Mr. Lester for all the technical work he did, and anyone else on your team, Mr. Warville, that worked on this. I want to thank them all. I want to thank Mr. Hudgens and Mr. Green and all the people at the high school on your team who put this together, because it was a really good graduation. I want to say thank you on behalf of everyone on the board, okay? I'd like to move forward another second if I could.
While you're at it, you got to thank Miss Duffield and the FFA for beautifying our campus.
Ms. Duffield and all of your students, thank you for all the work you did on the campus.
Thank you.
One of the things I noted when I did come in was that the high school campus was neatly trimmed and mowed. It was very presentable, and that helped us put forth a good image to the public as there. That's one of the times when we have a large number of people from our community there. I also want to thank Superintendent Warville and particularly Mr. Lester and anyone else on your team that works with this that I'm not aware of. This meeting room, it's comfortable, it's big, it's spacious, we have a good sound system, we have a screen, and it takes, and it's being broadcast live. That takes a lot of work, and I think Mr. Lester does a large amount of that. And we want to thank you for that, because we appreciate and we understand how much it takes to do this. And thank you very much, and this is a much better place to be meeting, and I kind of look forward to board meetings now. Having ran my mouth that much, let's move forward. And we're going to look at new school scholars. It's after school tutoring. And whom do we have?
Derek Pugh.
Derek Pugh. Well, Mr. Pugh, welcome.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And we look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm
You can only
hand
steal
out
one of the
some-
mics down there.
Yeah, definitely. I may be able to talk loud enough.
Okay.
Try hardest there. But I do want to piggyback before we get into this initiative. Something Mr. Stan said was just that was a breath of fresh air to see Mr. Ramsey, the things that he's doing with those kids, just the level of engagement that they have. I mean, that's the whole reason that we all get into education, was to bring that excitement and joy to students. So that was one of that was good.
Yeah, it was.
It's tough shoes to follow, man. So,
We'll let Mr. Hudgens speak first.
that's right.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me come in today. Mr. Pugh here asked me if I could speak on a little bit about new school and how that has impacted us. And when we come back from so much remote learning this year, the first thing we noticed was our kids were behind. The kids They were online. They had instruction through Google Classroom, but it's not the same as being in a classroom all day with a teacher 5 days a week. And we needed some help getting these kids caught up. And Susie and I talked about it, and as well, and how we could use some tutoring and some things we could need to get the kids and staff to school. And we worked with Barry and Mr. Pugh here and Mr. Warble, and the plan was education based. And we didn't know how it would work at first, but once we started, especially from my end, I saw a lot of my students, high school students, as peer tutors, and they were helping middle school kids and getting paid to do it. Several of my high school kids were, after this, or after a few weeks of it, are now thinking about being teachers because of the impact that they had on these kids. And the first evening they were there, it was in the cafeteria, and there were about 7 pockets around the cafeteria of one-on-one instruction with a high school student and a 6th grade student. And they were helping with math, they were helping with reading. And it was amazing to see that. And I kind of got chill bumps just thinking about it again, because it was a powerful thing to see. And the high school kids would say, we remembered stuff we learned years ago that we forgot. So it was beneficial for them. But also, I wanted to add that, the kids that were coming to tutoring did catch up on quite a bit of their work, and Mr. Pugh has some data to show you on that. Our teachers who has really worked hard this year, they're very tired, and to have the extra support needed here to get us across the finish line was beneficial. And even now, I think that having a new school in the future would benefit our students and would benefit our schools. But that would be a Strauss decision made. But it was really cool to see him come in once a week, the payday guy. And when they'd come in, he'd ask the kids, he'd say, what's your grade now? How you doing? What have you learned this week? And then they get the money and they tell stories about what they were going to go buy because they got $15 in their pocket, or they got $39 in their pocket. So education pays, and a lot of credits were recovered for us at the high school level. We got a lot of kids across the finish line, and it's going to benefit us in the next few years because we had underclassmen to catch up on credits as well. So it's been very beneficial. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Pugh here and let him show some data.
Yep, sounds good. Al, thank you so much. You guys hear me okay? I don't need this thing. Okay. Al said something in there about, I would ask him every week when I pay him, how many classes are you failing now? Because that's the ultimate goal of this program, is to reduce the classes and to get them through and to help them. The educational world has been running for a complete loop, so to get those kids back in, we had to do something outside the box, something unorthodox. So this is kind of what we came up with. And to me, once I go over this data, I think that we've made some giant strides in this in a very short amount of time. But when I would ask them, man, what are you going to do with all this money? Because $15 is a lot of money for some of these kids, and even for me. So when I would ask this little, and the one that really stands out, and I have to tell the story, will be the one that really stands out to me. I asked this young man, I said, what are you going to do with this money? This is like week 4, week 5, and he's there consistently 3 days a week. So, whatever 15 times 4 is, that's what's in his pocket right now, right? So he says, I'm saving my money, I'm going to buy me a fan. And I was like, family? For what? Like, what kind of fan are you talking about? I don't know if it's for like an RC car or, so I'm asking him, and he's like, no, for my room. Like I'm hot, and it's hard for me to sleep, and that was a tough pill for me to swallow, because look, I have 4 kids, and my kids have never wanted for a family, and I forget things like that. that. So, and it gives me chills right now talking about this, just how big of an eye-opener this program is back for me. Much more so than, the credits that we're recovering, and you'll hear some testimonials from these kids when I go in and show. But so we went out and we bought this young man a tall, oscillating fan and gave to him. And when we went and delivered that to him, I was like, man, is this what you were talking about? And he just looked at me like he had never received a gift in his entire life. And he was like, is that for me? And I was like, for sure, man. Like, this is all you. Like, you worked your tail off. Like, I'm super proud of you. Save your money, buy you something that you want that's going to be enjoyable for you, not something that's going to keep you cool at a 90-degree muggy. Like, the weather here is completely different than right up the road. Like, that's hot. It's hot here, like coming off that river. So he hugged me, hugged the Miss Susie, and it was just, man, it made it all worth it. If we didn't recover a single credit, although we did, that story to me in and of itself is success. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. So before we get into that, I'm going to hopefully show you this video right here. See if you guys can hear it. Volume up on this thing.
As a team, we sat down and worked together with some ideas for getting our kids caught up. And then we decided, since education pays, let's go with $13 for peer tutoring for students and $5 for kids who show up for tutoring.
And we really wanted to target those students that are behind in all subjects, or maybe even one or two. And we were really surprised that our first night we had 95 students that stayed for tutoring, which was awesome. Actually, after school would help me. It's really useful, helps me get where I'm able to pass. Also, I like to spend time with friends after school. We do this 3 evenings a week. It's from 1 hour, from 3:30 to 4:30. We make up this assignment and we go get like Nutella stuff to bring up our meal later.
At 3, get your food. 3:30, have it in the room. 3:30 to 4:45, you do your work. And then Friday or Monday, you get paid.
We have tutors that are peer tutors, and also the number of teachers was amazing. The number that said they were agreed to stay and help our students. If anyone needs help in there where they're in class for 1 semester, and we just help them get their grades up. The president of teacher doing it because they know us, they don't have any, kind of they're going through.
I talked to one of my students this morning, and she was talking about how she's actually teaching a 7-year-old how to read better. And it's really a powerful tool in the school system to see one of my students be able to get into the ocean level and not to be successful. So the education pays mantra has really been done.
I understand it's a different way of looking at things, but at the end of the day, our kids deserve people to think a little bit differently in the midst of a pandemic, and our kids are struggling. So we're trying to help them with their social emotional needs, and we're trying to help them with their educational needs. And all by the way, they get paid a little bit of money to spend it on themselves. They deserve that, and that's all the opportunity we want to give our kids.
So, to me, it was a pretty big success with the kids, with the grades, and I'd like to just quickly go over some of the data, just the quick snapshots here. So, that very first page, this was all orange to begin with. So, on that very first page, the one core subject, 95% of students that participated, 73 out of 77 for that piece, recouped at least one core content area. The second one there is the two core subjects, so ELA, math, and science and social studies, the combined. 86% of students who were failing, at least 2 students recouped those grades, or recouped up to a passing section. The second page there is the high school. This is the credit recovery that we ran during the school day. 49 credits were at jeopardy. Some of those 49 credits were going to prevent an individual from participating in graduation and affect graduation rates for Summers County High School. So out of those 49, in a 6-week, 7-week period, we recovered, and when I say we, it was a collective effort, we recovered 31 credits out of 49. So that's 64% increase of a passing, of a failing rate. The next page there, we break it down by subject, by core content level. So we'll start with the 6th grade. So and again, all of this was orange to begin with, all failing when they entered the program. So math, 6th grade math, we recovered 63% of students who participated in the program. 63% of the students came in failing, exited the program here last Friday with a passing grade. ELA, 88% came in failing, or 100% came in failing, 88% left passing. Math 7, 100% came in failing. Of the students that we worked with, 85% exited the program with a passing Math 7th grade. ELA, 7th grade, 96%. So out of all of those students that we worked with in ELA 7, only 4% still had a failing grade. Math 8, 3% had a failing grade at the completion of this program. 97% had a passing grade. ELA 8, 83% had a passing grade. The next page, so this is the chart. So Math 6, average grade percent, pre-initiative, prior to April 13th when we got kicked off, 60%. We increased that to 71% pass rate. ELA, 6th grade, 24%. We increased that to 66%. Science and social studies was at a 65%. We increased that to a 75%. Math 7 went from a 55 to a 70. ELA went from 54 to 56. So that's one of the smaller jumps there. Science and social studies, 63 to a 73% increase, or average grade increase, if you will. And then the average grade increases for Math 8, this one was kind of, these were phenomenal to me. We went from a 41% average grade percentage up to a 74 average grade percent. ELA 8, 8th grade, ELA, average grade percent increase went from a 46 to a 71. Science and West Virginia history went from a 60% up to an 80% increase, percentage point increase. So the data, to me, speaks volumes. I personally feel like it was a tremendous success based on the social interpersonal component of it. Like the young man said, he enjoys staying after school and hanging out with his friends and learning. I asked one of the young men, I said, what do you like about this? What do you not like? What do you like? He was like, I don't like it all. He's like, this is the best after school program I've been in. And I was like, why do you say that? He was like, I get paid. And I was like, all right, I get that. But what else is good about it? Let's go beyond that extrinsic motivating factor. Let's talk about like the intrinsic component of it. What's good about it and what did you like? Let's take out that you were not getting paid. And he was like, well, it gets my parents off my back. This is the first time in my life that I've passed every single class like that. Like, that's wild to me. That this is the first time that kids ever passed every single class. So, and it was just story after story after story. And I really wish I could have brought some of the kids in as like like young artists here to talk about it. Because nothing speaks more volumes than that personal testimony. So that's why we try to capture a small snapshot on that video. So, do you guys anyone have questions for anything?
Any members have any questions you'd like to ask?
I do. Throughout the county, it was, each week would vary. In the high school, we had, how many in the credit recovery now? There's 39-ish in that. That was just in the credit recovery. And then in the middle school credit recovery, there was approximately 48 kids that participated in that. And then in the tutoring program, after school initiative, it would vary between each week, but it hovered right around 115 each week from talking Hinton area, middle school, and high school. And one of the things that was only briefly highlighted there were the peer mentors. Like, that was phenomenal to see. Al talked about it, but it was really neat to see a middle school 7th, 8th grader working with a 5th, 6th, or 6th grader to increase that math score and to teach them on a peer level. They weren't intimidated. Like, it's intimidating for me even to sit in a continuing education class. I may not fully understand something, and I'm not going to raise my hand. I hope and pray that someone asks the same question that I have, or else I'm just not going to get that content like that. I'm the same way as a lot of these kids are. So it takes that fear, not that the teachers are doing anything to make them afraid, but there's a stigma when you ask questions or you feel dumb because you don't understand. So it eliminates that. The high school students going down to Talkit or to Hinton area, to me, it's going beyond them doing that. It's developing future teachers for your county. There were several individuals who said, I don't even like kids, but this was like amazing to me. So maybe we can feed those kids into your VOTEC program and develop them into future teachers and to retain them here in the county that they're familiar with and really get some homegrown, talented individuals. So it's been kind of cool the whole way around.
Any more questions by anyone? I have one quick question. Outside of the peer leadership, is there anything you can share with us that you felt like you did special or outside of the box that maybe motivated these kids other than the money, but things that motivate them, and did you witness that where maybe they got something out of it because of something you all were doing?
Right. I don't necessarily, we played a very, very small role in this, and I'll be honest with you. The teachers went above and beyond. Al went above and beyond. Sport went above and beyond. Susie went above and beyond. Miss Gum, Miss Rose, they all, I think what went above and beyond is just showing them that extra attention, that extra love, that extra, I don't know the word that I'm looking for, but staying after school and showing them that we really do, like, we care about what you're doing and how you're performing, and just listening to stories that they tell, about their own life. And it's just that intimate setting almost that they don't get a chance to necessarily participate in.
So it's fair to say then that people rolled up their sleeves and went to work and did what you had to do to accomplish the job.
I was here on average 2 or 3 days a week, pretty much, and we're in several counties, so I see various calibers of teachers. I've told Mr. Warhol, I've told Al, I've told Susie, I haven't got a chance to tell you guys, you have an amazing core group of educators. It's an amazing community, each side of the county. Like, these teachers get after it. They want to see the students get after it. They want to see each other succeed. It's not a competition. It's you get the nail on the head, they roll up their sleeves, and they went to work.
Superintendent Wolf.
The other thing too, going above and beyond, is every one of our bus drivers, they were involved. It made their day longer, but you know, you get compensated pay, but that's not why people do their job. I mean, that's nice. Kids get paid, educators get paid, bus drivers get paid. But at the end of the day, not one of my staff members complained. The bus drivers would talk to each other. Okay, who's got this kid? What's going on? That's what you like. It was a team effort. And now the next step is I have to see the data to see if we're going to keep pumping money towards new school. So next school year, what we learned from it was, okay, we might have paid too much money for one sector or not enough here. And so we're trying to balance it out for all 4 quarters. And what we're looking at is also the social emotional, the counseling piece. That one wasn't hit as hard because, let's be honest, we were pushing the academics. But next year we want to push the counseling. So if I'm a kid and I need counseling, I can go to after-school tutoring and nobody knows if I'm going to go get some counseling or if I'm going to go get coaching with my academics. We all need coaching. We all need counseling. I don't care who you are. We all have, you said it earlier, Miss Mann, I don't know if she's still here. Or, no, it was you, Mr. Angels, I'm sorry. You said some days are good, some days are bad. Middle school is a funky age, and after school tutoring, you might just go get some counseling, and you might be in a support group. Hey, we have 4 or 5 kids that need some help. Okay, you're tutoring, we don't have to wink. Your tutoring's down there. Go get tutored in mental health. I'm having a bad day. My girlfriend broke up. Someone called me this. I'm getting bullied. We want a support group for our kids, not only academically, but the social emotional. So I sat down with Mrs. Pugh, the better half of Mr. Pugh, because it's an LLC. Well, anyway, we sat down, Renee and I, Miss Jones, and also Lauren Crook, we sat down because Lauren has to keep us honest because Renee and I get excited with all these ideas, and then Lauren helps us out, and then Brian also says, we can't, this is too much on our bus drivers. And I'm not saying you guys complain, but someone has to, we all have to say, okay, great ideas, but we can only afford so much, and what are we trying to accomplish here? So next school year, we're gonna make sure we bid out for the busing, but before we do that, we wanna identify kids early for next school year saying, who do we think we need to really target and start with a smaller group, and then we can start out with the busing smaller and people who would like to do it, because some of our bus drivers, they don't want to be in a bus that long, and I can't blame them. But what they did is they literally sucked it up, made sure all the kids got taken care of, and it looked like Disneyland around here, Disney World, where it was a great dance that Mr. Boone and Mr. Thomas and whomever else was helping out. It was a dance, and everybody was doing square dancing, and in my mind, I call it square dancing because that's what I grew up with. And I'm telling you, not one person got in each other's way. It was almost like we got out of each other's way. And like when Derek was telling me about that young man who needed a fan, I told my wife, I said, my God, we wouldn't have known this if he just didn't open up to us. So that's a counseling piece. And I think between Derek, me, and a few others, we all tripped over each other's. I'm buying that fan for it. It was so awesome because anybody that heard that story was like, I'll buy the fan. Because we wanted that kid to enjoy money to go get it on whatever the heck he wants to buy it on. Who cares? But it's not about education pays financially. It's education pays for my life in the future. And if I can help tutor, we had high school and middle school kids get bused from one side of the county to the elementary buildings, and they were tutoring. And the kids got fed after school, they got bused, and they were taken well care of. Our county cares. You could see that, guys. And you can look at the data. You needed data. We put money into Mr. Pugh's organization because this is how we have to do it. But I'm trying to work on some politicians at the national level to maybe look at what we're trying to accomplish, because it did work. We had kids getting better grades. And if people want to argue the point with me, well, you paid them to come there, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes an extrinsic reward is what it takes to get them in the door. Because you know there's an old saying, if you feed them, they'll come. Well, we fed them, we bust them, and we gave them a little cash. And Mr. Pugh is a jerk to some of these kids and say, you don't get paid. He said that to a few of them because they tried to get paid. And I'm not saying they were dishonest, but they said, well, I was here last week. It doesn't say you were. and then they would leave and they quit arguing. And he had to be the bad guy sometimes. And it's not bad in a bad way. It's bad in teaching kids. You don't show up, you don't get paid. End of story.
And it's not just about showing, it's about work. You don't work,
Right.
you're not getting paid either. It's
Right.
just like a job. You know, it's, and to piggyback kind of on what you said there, the counseling component of it, if a kid is not stable and they're not in the mentality to learn, it doesn't matter who's going to teach them or what content is going to be presented to them. They're shutting down and they're not ready. If that kid comes to sleep under the fan because it's hot, he's sleepy, he sleeps all day, his needs, those hierarchy of needs are not met. So education means absolutely nothing to that young man until those needs are met. And I think it's critical, like you said, this counseling component of it, if that's what we want to call it, is just as critical as the academic component, which is just as important as the social interpersonal skills.
Sure.
No question. Which one?
Just thinking about this a minute, based on, and I know your numbers, but based on the ones you did stay in, did you still see improvement with those?
You better say it.
There was, just not enough. And some of those kids in there, which is an excluding factor, which, like, that's what Al and I were talking about. So if you look over, like on page 2 there, that high school, some of those kids in the orange are just MIA. They're not coming, they're not participating. Those are your truancy kids that skew that data. So if you would kind of, I hate to say eliminate them from the data, of those that actual participated, that blue is going to be, it's going to be a better background in there.
But here's how I look at it, Mr. Angel. We need to say, why is that many kids? We need that 36 to dwindle down. And so next year, since we have that data and we kind of know, not 100% because kids pop in and out, we're going to target them. And anybody in orange should be already ready for this summer. They're going to get that opportunity for summer school. But also this fall, we're trying to target them within the first 3 weeks of school. And to piggyback on all this and to wrap it up, basically they came under budget of 14 grand. And so what we'd like to do is I will get you more data and share we have a plan for four quarters of next school year and how we'd like to do it. We went a little over on the busing because, well, we made every bus driver drive after school, and that was asking a lot. And I'm not going back to that well. But what I am going to do is if the drivers do want to do the tutoring, then that'll be an after-school duty, and then they can bid on that. So that's one we learned from that we need to do better. Another one is, okay, target the kids who need more help, because just because you provide an opportunity doesn't mean they'll bite on it. We can do everything in the world, but if they don't come, I can't force them. But what we can do is try to entice them with taking away barriers by providing busing, a snack after school, and we'll give you a little money in your pocket.
Well, I was just going to say one other thing about the data. To piggyback again on that, my goal next year with data, should we be here again, is for it to look very different. I don't want to see these spikes. Like I told my little boy had a game to go into the championship to see. We ended up winning 6 innings. So, but I told him, I was like, don't play catch up. So that's kind of, don't get behind. And that's my goal here. So I don't want to see these astronomical jumps from 42% failure rate up to 80. So my goal next year is to not to impress you guys, to say that as far as data goes. I want that streamlined baseline, basically. And I want to catch those kids early, or we want to catch those kids early, and to keep them and to maintain that grade and that passing grade, not to go from failing to passing. I want to go from a C to a B, or a D to a C, or a B to an A. That's my ultimate goal. We don't want to see failing next year. We want to be proactive as opposed to this year we're reactive.
Yeah.
I don't like a reactive game.
I think Mr. McBride had.
Well, I just wanted to say that my big grandkids participated and they really enjoyed it.
Did they?
Yes, and they look forward to the money. It also, it jumped them, in their school.
Good. So you saw
I saw
growth in it.
it.
Excellent.
Good.
Well, thank you.
That's good enough.
Yep, it is. Any other questions for anyone?
Thank you very much.
Board,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Superintendent Warble, if you will get Mr. Marone on the
Okay.
line, I'm going to go ahead and take up items of business while you're doing that. I'd like to call the board's attention to item 6, approval of minutes, May 13th, 2021 regular meeting, May 20th, 2021 special meeting. Chair would entertain a motion to approve those minutes unless somebody has found a problem with them or has a question about them.
0784.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Angel that we approve the minutes for May 13 and May 20 of 2021, the regular and special meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second by Mrs. Farley. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstaining. 4 votes in the affirmative. The May 13th and May 20th, 21 board minutes for regular meeting and special meeting have been approved for the record. Going forward, let's go down to item 9, community volunteerism. Cleaning the bleachers for graduation. Our new head football coach, Josh Evans, is very much involved in that, as he is on a lot of other projects and volunteering time and doing an awful lot of work at the high school. I want to report that to all of you. Also, he had helping him Cohen McClarity, if I said that right, a football player. So we want to say thank you and recognize that community volunteerism of Coach Josh Evans and Cohen McClarity. Were there any others? Okay. All right, we've taken care of that. Why don't we go ahead, while they're working on this, let's talk about the bills, approval of bills. You have before you a list of bills. I have looked through these carefully. I don't see any bills from either McGraw
Hi, Trey.
Hill or
Will you
James
hold for a
Law.
second?
Does anybody else see any?
Hey Trey, can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay.
Are there
One second.
any bills that would represent a
I can
conflict for
hear you.
anyone that we need to pull out?
Do you all like this a little bit better, highlighted and understand? Okay.
Say again?
And we appreciate that. It makes it easier. So
I've got your volume
Mrs.
turned
Crook
down.
is in
Just-
charge of that. She did nice work.
I know she likes color coding.
Well,
She's like working with pastels
Yeah.
when she's in elementary school, but that's okay. There's some bills on the back too, guys. Please look at those. So I don't see any from McGraw-Hill or from James and Law, no other conflicts. Then the chair would move that this board approve paying the bills as presented to us by Superintendent Warble and Scs-Boe, Mrs. Crook. There's a motion on the floor of the chair, seconded by Mr. Angel. This board approve the paying of the bills as presented to us. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining. Let the records reflect that the bills have been approved to be paid, Superintendent Warble. Do you have Mr. Marone online?
Yes, we do.
yes.
You do? At this time, we're going to back
You need a
up. We're going to have a
microphone for that.
presentation by Trey Marone from Bowles Rice Law Firm. This is regarding our policy manual update for Summit County Schools. And we'll be on this for a couple minutes. We'll go through them in detail. But this time, Mr. Marone, you have the floor.
Thank you, President Duncan. I appreciate, of course, the opportunity to be here this evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you fine. Everybody else here? We're good.
Okay. Well, a couple things just on the update before we get into the two policies that are listed. We are still working towards the full review of the manual. I had a really good conference with your administrative team earlier this week on the Chapter 3. All those policies have been reviewed and we're being revised now, and we'll get those down to you in a couple weeks, and then we're going to move into Chapter 8, which is your business and finance policies. So they'll just continue to come to you in those groups. But that's a very productive meeting. I just wanted to commend the staff on all the hard work that was done during that conference. It was very productive. So the policies this evening, I recall, I don't know if it was last month, but here in one of the recent meetings, there was discussion about cell phone policies. Most counties have those already, and some information was presented to me that some different things to consider to put into a policy. You do not have a policy for cell phone usage, and I'm using that term generally because it applies to all electronic signaling devices. But you don't have a policy for employees, and you don't have a policy for students. So I drafted one of each, and you should each have a copy of those. The comment page will basically tell you that it's a new policy. You don't have one, so you're not really amending a policy. Since there's two different policies that kind of cross-references the two, this is a policy that you're not required to have, but it's a good idea to have. So the authority for this, of course, is the Board of Education. That'll be reflected in your minutes. Now, I'll start with the staff policy, which is much shorter. Generally speaking, of course, staff are permitted to have cell phones and electronic devices in the school system and at school with them during the work or school day, but there are guidelines established. And just to kind of give you a general, I'm not going to read the whole policy. You've got that in front of you. You'll have plenty of time to do that before you would take a vote on it down the road. But generally speaking, the cell phone usage shouldn't interfere with the instructional day. It's kind of the general rule that comes out of this policy. It shouldn't interfere with any instruction or any safety or work that the individual's doing. So that's kind of a general sense is what that policy is about. If there's a county-owned cell phone that's been distributed or issued to any of the employees, there's a couple of revisions at the end of the policy. This is a new policy. Of course, any policies you have, you can rework. Say you want something worded differently. The key is to put it out for comment, which is what I think you're considering this evening. Give the public an opportunity to comment on it, and then when it comes back to the board, if you get any comments, you have those, and then, of course, you may have your own thoughts and comments that you want to implement, and then we can get it to where, if there's going to be changes made, we can make those revisions before you vote. So any questions on the staff policy?
Any questions by any members? There are no questions, Mr. Morone.
Okay. All right, and then the other policy is the student use of cell phones or electronic signaling devices. And of course, it's a little bit longer. The policy there is a little bit longer. It, of course, starts off by talking about the scope of the policy and kind of the reason why you want to have a policy in place, and that's outlined at the beginning. And then there's a couple of definitions in the policy describing all the devices that it would cover, and then a general statement about misuse. The authorization under this policy, and again, it's subject to your discretion and what you want to do, but this policy has been written up to basically say students may bring cell phones to school, but when they bring them to school, they're going to be, kept in appropriate storage areas, including their locker, backpack, or wherever they need to be, and they need to be turned off, and they need to be put out of use. And then they can use the cell phone before or after school while on school property. There could be a reason why someone in the form of instruction may have, there may be some need to use it. I mean, I don't know what different methods that people are using, but if there was some sort of reason in the curriculum to use a mobile device or something, that's something that could be permitted, but it would require permission to do that. So, there wouldn't be any confusion about, hey, well, they said I could have it out in class. And then, sporting events, there's several different exceptions in there about reasons why you might be able to have a cell phone if you're a student during the day. And then there's a whole section in here that talks about, the discipline that could come to a student if, they violate this rule. And, of course, it starts like any progressive discipline, of steps and first offenses. And, we're basically going to take the device and give it back at the end of the school day. And then it goes on through the different steps you can see there at the bottom of the second page. Listing those. It just outlines all the different ways that use of cell phone devices become problematic, and the goal is to to allow them for the appropriate use, but to prevent the inappropriate use. And I'm sure you know, and people see it in the news all the time, there's just a lot of, where cell phones are really like miniature computers in your hand. There's so many things that they're capable of, and it can really create a lot of problems in the school system. So it's really important to have, to allow cell phones for the purpose that they might be needed by a student, but also to have some very strict controls in place so that they're not misused and they don't bring problems on the students or the student body or anything of that nature or the school system. And I do note that at the end of this policy, we have it that if this policy, if the board would adopt this policy, it should be included in the student handbook so that there's no question year to year, that this is in place. So this is a good time for both these policies, because if you get these policies out for review and then back to the board and get them finalized and approved, this summer, next month, whenever you're ready to do that, you'll have them in place for the next coming school year. Any questions on the student policy?
I have a question too. I have seen school system with really no policy, and I can tell the board members and everyone present that is a huge disaster in this day and time. I have seen this policy that you put before us, pretty much the same one used, and it took hold and it was very effectual after a while. And then I've seen it modified, and then it was like the horse getting the bit in their mouth and running away again. So my question to you is this policy that you put before us, you find that this policy, the general spirit of it, is used by a lot of counties, is it not?
Well, the general spirit of it is, and I will say that this is, I would consider on the stricter end of policy when it comes to student policies specifically. And I think that that's usually the best way to start with a policy, because I think if you start with a more liberal policy, you're kind of inviting problems and issues. So this is certainly a policy. The strictness of it is used by other counties, and I would recommend, especially when it's the first policy that you've had, to start on the strict end, because as you know, you can always loosen up your policy and you can make it a little bit more liberal if you feel that there's a need to do that, but it's hard to have a more liberal policy than to start making it more strict. It just seems like it's better to work in that direction. So I will say that this policy is a pretty strict policy, but I think you kind of have to start off that way to make sure that that everybody understands what the rules are. And then if you feel like you need to loosen the policy up down the road, I'm not saying you should or even will want to, but at least you can move in that direction. It's a better direction to move in instead of to try to tighten up the policy.
Okay, I would just say to the members, I talk to a lot of school systems around the state, and I find many of them that I have talked to, their policy is pretty much like the one you have before you. And I can also address the fact that when you liberalize this policy, you start running into trouble. Mr. Marone, is there anything else you wish to share with us today?
No, that's it. That's all I had, unless there's any questions. But otherwise, certainly always enjoy coming in on your meetings, and I appreciate you accommodating me to do that, and be happy to answer any questions, now or any other time that any of the board members would have.
Are there any questions by any members of the board? Okay, Mr. Marone, it's nice talking with you again. We look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Good night.
Trey.
Superintendent Ward, will you have any comments on any of this, or are you ready to move on the agenda?
No, I think Vanessa said we're good.
Okay, very good. Are there transfers and supplements?
Yes.
Okay. If you look in your folder, you have transfers and supplements. Do we have any questions by any members on the transfers and supplements? Or Mrs. Crook, do you have anything you wish to share with us? Take just a minute, let everybody look at them. When you reach a point you're satisfied with them, let me know. Any questions by any members or any comments you wish to make regarding the transfers and supplements? If not, the chair would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the transfer to supplements.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor by Mrs. Farley, seconded by Mr. McBride, that this board approve the transfers and supplements as presented to us by Superintendent Warble and Scs-Boe, Mrs. Crook. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstaining. 4 votes in the affirmative, Superintendent Warble, we have approved the transfers and supplements. That brings us down to item 12, old business. There's none there. We'll move to item 13, new business. 13A says approved purchases over 20,000. Superintendent Warble, there are none this time.
We did enough at the special board meeting.
I thought we did too, so we'll move on. Members, you have before you, and we've gone over this, and it's been out on review, we have item 13B, which is approved Summers County School Board policy addition to our manual, and it is Roman numeral 3-B-2, parent involvement. Are there any questions or comments by anyone regarding this policy? Everybody's, yes, go ahead.
Do we have to do any public comment on it?
Where's there any, there was no public comment.
The only thing was, I think, was it semantics? I think there was like a little adjustment on verbiage, but no.
Okay. Any other questions by any members? If not, the chair would move that this board approve item 13B, policy Roman numeral 3-B-2, parental involvement as presented to this board, having been put out on public review. Is there a second? The motion has been seconded by Mr. Angel. Is there any discussion? All in favor that this board approve 13B, Roman numeral 3-B-2, parent involvement policy, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining. 4 votes in the affirmative, Superintendent Warble. Please add 3-B-2, parent involvement, to our policy manual update. That brings us now to item 13C, approved policies to continue on review. We have been over all of those, and so I think it's fair that we just, I'm going to go ahead and expedite that. The chair moves that this board, in consideration of 13C, approve these policies to continue on review, and there are 1B, 2B1, 2B2, 2B3, 2B6, 2B8, 2B10, 2B11, 2C0, 2C2, and 2-C-3. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion on the floor of the chair, second by Vice President Farley, that this board approve the previously read policies to continue on review. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining. 4 votes in the affirmative, Superintendent Warble. Item 13C, policies are to continue to be on review for the public. That moves us now to item 13D under new business. 13D, you will see is approved policies to be placed on review as new policies to be adopted. The policies to be placed on review would be policy Roman numeral 4-H-20, staff use of cell phones and electronic signaling devices in schools. Additionally, Roman numeral 7-A-11, student use of cell phones and electronic signaling devices in schools. Mr. Marone went over those. You have copies of those. Chair would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to put policies 4-H-20 and 7-A-11 to be placed on review.
Chair seconds that. Is there any discussion? There's a motion duly made and seconded for Roman numeral 4-H-20 and Roman numeral 7-A-11 on staff and student cell use and electronic signaling devices in schools. Policy be placed on review. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. 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 Opposed? Abstaining. Superintendent Ward will please place those on review. It has been approved by 4 votes in the affirmative. 13E, discussion and approval of fiscal year 2021-2022 budget. Superintendent Ward.
Yeah, you guys have a handout on our budgets there, and that's the first staple page, and you should see the current expense funds that we have there, or general current expense. You can see the local sources that we have, and you can see where the state sources are, the federal sources, and miscellaneous. What you can see here is the line items as you go down, how we're going to try to spend all of the money that we have throughout the school year. So basically, this is a template of what you've seen in the past. The only difference here that you're going to see is the estimation on some balances. If you go to the second page, you'll see where, as you go down through here, you'll see what we've tried to put here for the total estimates. As you look at the sources that we have from each one, either state aid or federal, you'll see what we've spent on instructions, and then you'll go down and see the food services that we have, and then we have to give you kind of a total estimate as we look into next school year. As you go down to the next page, you'll see the federal stimulus and stabilization fund, excuse me. You know how we're getting that $3.4 million for the second round?
Yes.
That's what that is. That's 3.498420. I just call it the 3.4 second round spending. You can see that we're trying to show you how we're trying to spend that 3.498420. At the bottom, you see that that number's repeated again. But before you get to that, you can see that instruction, out of the 3.498420, we're going to spend a little over $1.4 million on instruction. And then you can see how we're trying to spend that out. All that money is put into the GPS, and with that GPS, that can be adjusted because we're trying to project how we want to spend that money. As we move forward, you can see that this money could be changed a little bit, but right now, this is how we think we're going to spend it. But we'll keep you up to date if we have to move it around like we did with that $900,000, that first round. We were told we get 2 years to spend it. Now hurry up and spend it. So we had to move that money around in GPS and move forward. So at this point in time, this is what we're budgeting from our state and federal, our special funding, and now our special stimulus funding of $3.4 million. So I know I ran through that pretty quickly, but this is how we're trying to budget for next school year.
Superintendent Warhol, the GPS, is that's the computer communication with the State Department, which lets them know how we are budgeting money, correct?
And we've gotten a blessing from the State Department on how we're spending that money. This is just another checks and balance, if you will, for you guys to approve what they've already approved as we move forward.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's important to note this is a budget, but the budget, if we need to, through the course of the year, we can do transfers and we can modify it. Is that correct?
Yes, and what we're going to show you in a few minutes after this is how we're going to spend the $3.4 million. Some of that will be on facilities, and then we're getting another round of money of $8.1 million on local education agencies on how we can spend that $8.1 million, because out of the $8.1 million, we're already getting a couple million now that's given to us. And we're going to go into more detail here in a minute with my superintendent report, but right now for budgetary, this is what we're trying to project for next school year.
Any members have any questions or comments that you'd like to make regarding the proposed budget for 2021-2022 school year? If there's no questions or comments, the chair would move that this board approve the budget revision summary for May 27, 2021. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion on the floor of the chair, second by Vice President Farley. This board approve the budget as presented to us by Superintendent Warville and Scs-Boe, Mrs. Crook. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstaining, 4 votes in the affirmative. Superintendent Warville, the budget that you presented to us has been approved. Going now to item 13G, we have approved agreement between Carolyn Price Stevens, licensed school psychologist, and the Summers County Board of Education. Did we miss something?
F. It's the salary schedules. You have 2 handouts on that.
My apologies. I marked out too far.
That's all right. That's why Mr. McBride's there to help you.
Yeah, and I need all the help I can get.
Me too.
I don't know how I missed this. Have we done this in the past, approved this salary schedule? Doesn't matter, but I don't recall it, and that's okay. Any questions by any members regarding the salary schedule as presented to us by Superintendent Warville?
Real quick, guys, the reason why I wanted to bring this to you and Ms. Crook is to show good faith effort that we are just taking the salary schedule from the state, and this is service and professional, and for you guys to approve so everybody knows what's going on for next school year.
This is just the state schedule.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we don't operate within levy that provides supplements, as do other counties, but that's a situation we have, and we have to be respectful of the limitations that we have as a county based upon our income.
Yep.
So having said that, the chair, having been corrected, the chair moves that we approve the fiscal year 2021-2022 salary schedules as presented to us, and making note that these are state salary scales. Motion on the floor of the chair, second by Mr. McBride, this board approve the fiscal year 21-22 salary schedules. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained. 4 votes in the affirmative. Superintendent Warville, we have approved the state schedule for salary schedules. Now we're ready for 13G. Approve agreement between Carolyn Price Stevens, licensed school psychologist, and the Summers County Board of Education. Is there anything in particular you wish to add to that, Superintendent Warville, or we can just move on?
No, you can move on, and really, when you look at this situation, there's not a whole lot of people licensed in this region, and we're pretty satisfied with this, unless Dr. Knott wants to add any more, but I'm pleased with everything. This is the going rate for a school licensed psychologist. Pretty much. I don't know what else to add other than this is template, boilerplate, this is the going rate.
We have item 13G before you, members.
Make a motion we approve the agreement between Carolyn Price Stevens and Summers County Community.
There's a motion on the floor of Vice President Farley, seconded by Mr. Angel, that this board approve item 13G, approve agreement between Carolyn Price Stevens, licensed school psychologist, and Summers County Board of Education. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained. 4 votes in the affirmative. This agreement has been approved. 13H, we scratched that, and Superintendent Warville will bring that back before us once you've had time for further negotiations exploring. Okay. That brings us to item 13I, approve school building authority of West Virginia fiscal year 2021 needs grant contract with Summers County Board of Education for Summers County Middle high school additions and renovations. Superintendent Ward, will you have any comments on this?
Just we're blessed to have this because if you've noticed in the news, School Building Authority is going to hold off on issuing any more monies to counties because, well, if you don't know, there's a lot of money coming from the federal government and they're holding off because when that money comes in through the federal government, they're going to just pause. We've been able to get that money. So the $8.2 million that's here, that is basically a gift from the State Department, and we're going to move forward. We have McKinley and Associates ready to move forward with us, and basically after you guys approve this, my signature, the Board of Education signature by Mr. Stan Duncan. Once we sign off, we'll give this to the Executive Director at the School Building Authority, and guys, it's official. We are moving forward.
I have to make a comment here for anybody that's listening. What this means is we got this money by our first year superintendent, and we hadn't got this spring. We'd got out $8 million worth. That $8 million is coming from the feds. We'd have to do it on this project. Other counties aren't going to have that advantage. So, having said that, what a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Approved School Building Authority. Chair moves that we approve School Building Authority of West Virginia fiscal year 2021 needs grant contract with Summers County Board of Education for Summers County Middle, High School additions and renovations. Is there a second? Motion on the floor of the chair, second by Mr. McBride, that we approve this school building for fiscal year 2021. Previously read. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstaining, 4 votes in the affirmative. Sign it and send it. Item 14, personnel items. As per the Open Meetings Act, these names, these positions, and all this information have been posted the required amount of time on the board website and in the public viewing at the board office. Members, you have this before you. If you look at it, we have superintendent's recommendations regarding resignations, professional personnel employment, supplemental employment professional, employment service personnel, employment substitute service personnel. Did I leave anything off? Okay, having been duly advertised and presented and posted on the agenda, Chair will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendations regarding personnel.
Is there a second? There's a motion on the floor by Vice President Farley, seconded by Mr. McBride, that this board approve Superintendent Worrell's recommendation under item 14, personnel items. The categories having previously been read, and all of the names and positions having been posted on the agenda for the proper amount of time. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining. Superintendent Worrell, your recommendations regarding personnel have all been approved by this board. This brings us forward now to item 15, and this is superintendent's report. Superintendent Worrell, will you have the floor?
I don't mean to walk behind you, but it'll be quick. It's like, you all should have this in front of you. We'll go with that real quick. You guys have copies. Okay.
Is it possible just to use that back and turn it just a little bit? There you go. I want people in the audience to be able to see it, but we'd like to see it as well.
I will do my 2 minutes, and then I want to yield to Mr. Lester. I'll do my 2 minutes to 3 minutes, and then I'll yield to Mr. Lester and Ms. Crook. We have an awful lot of money coming to this county, and it's not a bad headache. This is a good headache. We got $8.2 million from the School Building Authority. Your blue sheet here shows you at the bottom, see where it says May 21st to May 23rd? What that means is May 2021 to May 2023. This project is going to take a few years. What McKinley & Associates have given you is what they do as a firm. This is their rendering for you to understand how they go through the process. Right now, Summers County School Board, I feel like I'm in people's wet, but you can see right here, we are in this phase right here where we need to start working with them on the renovation, additions, and we need to start working with them on the planning schematic phase. So right now, McKinley Associates in the next couple weeks, or in June, will send an engineer, possibly the president, and an architect. And we are going to discuss not only the renovations, but Mr. Lester and Ms. Crook will talk about other projects that we have on board for our county, using eServe, CARES, COVID money, whatever you want to call it, from the federal government. But what we're going to need to do is get community input, and we're going to work with our communities to set up a time where we can sit down and hear what people would like to see. That doesn't mean we can do everything. There's a difference between what we need and what we want. Hopefully we get everything, but you guys know as well as I do, it always comes down to money, and we got to stay fiscally responsible as we move forward. Having said that, we also have Raynell Medical out there, and the reason why I have to bring that up is if we do an MOU with Raynell Medical, and Raynell Medical can bring money to the table to bring in a medical center, then why don't we just go ahead and work towards that? Right now, McKinley & Associates is working with Meadow Bridge Pre-K through 12 facility, and Raynell Medical is bringing money to the table to work with Raynell Medical. We have to start that now, guys, because you can't do it after the fact. It's a lot harder with change orders, and you guys know last week we had a special board meeting with a change order. We don't want to deal with those. When we have some, sure. We don't want to make it where it gets out of the $8.2 million budget. So as you can see, this is what they try to do to show to the end of the line 3 years out. We won't be digging until next year around this time. The earliest we'll start, depending on the weather in the planning phase, is around March, April, May. Just look at March, April, May and start digging, because we have to go through the whole bidding process out there to get contractors. I'm kind of glad we're waiting another year for one reason. If you haven't been aware of what's going on, go to Lowe's and buy a 2x4 or a 2x whatever. It's 40 to 50% higher. And I said 40 to 50% higher. I'm not embellishing the facts. That's where we are with products. The second problem we're having is we're not the only state or the only county looking for help. And when you look at it, right now we have money, but we might not have the labor out there. Right now the labor force is very dry when it comes to skilled workers who can put something together. So this is the issues we're dealing with. Again, good headache, but it can also be bad headaches when you're looking at materials and you're looking at the labor force. So this is what McKinley Associates has put together, and this is called a projection. So if people say, well, you changed it or something happened, you're right. We have weather, we have the workforce, and we have materials that we're looking at to keep it within the budget of $8.2 million. So that's real quick. I know it's fast, but now if I can draw your attention to this colored sheet that shows what we'd like to do for the whole county. We're not just looking at the SBA project, but if you're looking at the board right now at the bottom, Ken has done a nice job of putting this SBA at the bottom. This is a project where we know we're going to be working on. But as we move forward, Mr. Lester and Ms. Crook have put together this presentation for you for two reasons. One, we'd like you to see what we're trying to deal with. I used this analogy the other day. I want people to understand when a house is burning, we're not pulling weeds. You don't pull weeds when the house is burning. So that's my analogy I want to use with you all. Why do I use that analogy? Right now we have a situation at the bus garage. We have a wall that, in Mr. Warble, Dave Warble's term, needs fixed. That's all I can say. Now, engineers are going to have to look at that, and architects in the next month with McKinley Associates to tell us what needs to be done. I don't care about anybody's opinion except from an architect and an engineer who can sign off on it and tell us what needs to be done. Then we can go from there. But right now, we have a bus wall that needs to be looked at, and I will pass this mic on to Mr. Lester so he can tell you what he's been dealing with since he's taken on a job as the facilities director. I don't think he knew, just like I didn't know, all the stuff I was going to get involved in when you look at triaging. But the good news is we have a lot of great things that are going on in this county. It's not the situations that come up, it's how we handle those situations. And right now, we have to present to the state board, not of education, but the state board as in they're responsible at the state level of all this federal money coming down to the counties. So how are they going to show assurances to the federal government? We have to go present in Charleston on June 28th at 1:30 to 3:30. We get 90 minutes, and we present for 30 minutes on something like this. But we were just told 2 weeks ago that we have to do this, and that's okay. They have to show assurances at the state level, at the federal level. The counties have to show assurances to the state, and we have to make sure everybody is spending money properly. So as we move forward on June 28th, we have to show what all we're doing with the $3.4 million that you approved tonight. We also have to show what we're going to do with the $8.1 million on the next round of money, and then the $8.2 million with the school building authority. I know that's a lot of information we threw at you, but we want to walk you through this to show visually what it looks like, okay?
So you notice the diagram and from the new wing at the high school that the SBA is doing, and how they broke it down with the planning phase, design phase, and all the way down to the bidding and then the construction phase. Each one of these projects have that also built in because, for instance, we started back in March on the freezer jumping branch. Dr. Knott put that out for bid. We looked at the specs. Then we had to go back, talk to the fire marshal about where could we put it, where egress was. Then we had to go back and we know we had to pour a pad and we have to do some electrical work. So each one of these projects have all that built in, just like the larger project that's going on here at the bottom. If you notice a timeline here at the bottom, fall of 24, September, I think, Ms. Crook, that is when round 3 of ESSER funding has to be spent by. So these can shift. Just like you noticed with the SBA project, they left a large window for the completion date. This isn't a static document. It can be updated and represented to you, but we have already started the freezer. We were waiting for our third quote on the wiring for the freezer, getting electricity to it. The board offices obviously have already been started, and you guys have talked about that. But there are other projects that are these are the ones that are large enough to join this list. This doesn't include your boilers that's went out. This doesn't include the leak that Charlie's having to fix. Or these are ones that were large enough to put on here. For instance, as soon as we get out of the board office, if you look here at the top, Hinton Area A, which means annex, that project needs to wrap up by August because we've got to be able to use it, right, for Hinton area. And it's in round 2 funds. For instance, the football stands, the inspector is requesting some remediations to those. It's coming out of C, which stands for county. Also color-coded here is blue is McKinley and Associates, because those are projects that rise to the level of needing an engineer or an architect. So obviously the bus wall, we need an engineer to look at this. None of us can be a subject matter expert in this. We're going to get them on that, and it's coming out of county funds. And then we have other projects that may come later that's out of round 3 ESSER funds that run out later because of round two, when does it have to be spent by?
September 30th of 2023.
2020, a year earlier. So the round 2's in here. So a full year ahead of this one. So, any questions about what you're looking at? There's some abbreviations here, but this really is just to give you an idea of this is what's going on this summer when things are starting, when we have to have things finished by something. So if you have any questions, this is your guide. So when you want to call up and ask us what's going on here, reference this so we know where we are.
Mr. Lester, does that complete your presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions, members? I want to point out we had a meeting today, and at the first regular meeting in June, Mrs. Crook is going to have this broken out, and Mr. Lester and Mr. Wardle. They're going to break it out based on a timeline and with the amount of monies that they estimate may have to be attributed to each one of the projects, and show you where it comes from, whether it comes from 3.4 million or the 8 million, the timeline and the estimated amounts. Did I say that correctly? Okay, and she will have that ready for us. So this was to give a brief overview tonight. We're going to look at this in greater detail at the next meeting, and then I think it will be just as clear as it can be to all of us.
Long story short, it's a fire hose and we're telling you to get a sip of water. We're trying to kink it. I don't know how else to put it. I'm trying to use analogies so people understand. This is a lot of information that is thrown at a Board of Education in each county, and we're trying to help you guys understand. These are years, not days. So when people see August 21, it's not going to be done by August 21st. It's just August of 2021, and that could slide. And we're just trying to give everybody an idea of big rocks and move forward as we keep moving day by day.
Mr. Boone, Mr. Farr, I want you to know I was in the court office today and I heard him request that when they do get here, maybe within 3 or 4 weeks, but he's asked that they bring a engineer to look at that wall. And then once we get that engineer to fill out the paperwork, sign off on it, then we can proceed with bids, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, yep. So just trust me, it's coming. Okay, Mr. Lester, thank you. Mr. Wardle. Mr. Wardle, do you have some more presentations in your superintendent's report?
Nope, I've taken enough air out of this room.
Okay. All right, having said that, is there anything that any member would like to see on the next agenda? We did note that there'll be a presentation on ELA and math.
Yes.
By Ms. Jones. That'll be the next meeting. We also, pending, we may have something on the medical. And was there one other thing we said would be on the next agenda? Or was that it? I think that was it. Well, again, any member who would like to see something on the agenda, if something comes up that you feel is important, you can contact Mr. Wardle and he can do that and have that posted on the agenda. Okay. Having said that, we've been here a long time, I understand that, but there were some really good things here tonight. So, Vice President Farley, you are on.